Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, which features interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, without further ado, I'll hand you over to your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, episode 97. This is your host, Holly Wharton. I'm here with today's special guest, Kate Northrup. Kate is the author of Money, a Love Story, Untangle Your Financial Woes and Create the Life You Really Want. Kate also created financial freedom for herself at the age of 28 through building a team of more than 1,000 wellness entrepreneurs in the network marketing industry. Her philosophy is that if you free yourself financially, you can be fully present to your purpose on this planet. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here today.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so I started reading books about kind of financial well-being, personal finance, and some of the stuff on the metaphysics of money and sort of the energetics of money. When I was in high school, my parents had gone through a divorce and my mom was kind of putting herself through a self-study course on financial literacy. And she decided that my sister and I should learn right along with her. And I was really open to it. I was super excited about learning about money. I'd always been into money and starting various businesses all through my childhood. And I started reading one of the books that profoundly impacted me was Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in which he talks about if you want to learn about business and treating yourself like a business and residual income, it's a good idea to spend 5 years with a good network marketing company because of the training that's offered and various other reasons. And so I actually did start a business with a network marketing company when I was 18 and did quite well with that business. I still have it. I still build that business and built it all through college and during my college vacations and was able to graduate from Brown without having to get a traditional job because of the business that I had built. But then I moved to New York City and I just, my living expenses increased dramatically and I just wasn't really paying attention. And before I knew it, I had racked up over $20,000 worth of credit card debt, which, to some people may not seem like that much, but to me, it felt like a mountain, in my early 20s. It was like, what? How did that happen? I just had gone completely financially unconscious. So what I learned is that the personal finance advice I was reading about getting out of debt, while very helpful and super practical, had a piece missing. And the piece that it was missing was the piece about, like, a lot of it was very much like the typical dieting advice, or the exercise advice, which is, calories in, calories out. And you just have to keep pushing yourself and go through a certain amount of pain and struggle and beating yourself up to lose weight.
No pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain. And that was sort of what I was finding in the personal finance industry, like, sort of a shame, blame mentality. And it didn't work for me. Like, no matter how many different programs or systems I tried, I couldn't stick with them because it was coming from a place of beating myself up as opposed to from a place of really kind of looking below the surface and asking, like, what is it? Why do I keep spending more than I make every single month? Like, why can't I stop this somewhat addictive behavior? And so it was this journey inward where I realized, okay, if money is a stand-in for what we value, and I want to not only make more money, but have a better relationship with my money, then what I need to do is learn how to value myself and learn how to love myself first. And through a more gentle, kind approach, then perhaps I can begin to pay off this debt. And that's exactly what happened when I started to make sort of the mental and emotional shift along with the actual logistical shift of spending less money and making more. That's when everything shifted sort of much more sustainably and actually stuck. So I was able to pay off all of my debt and double my income and double my savings and really create a pretty big financial turnaround. And that story is what led to me writing my book, Money, a Love Story, which came out in 2013 and is a really helpful guide for others who, may be in debt or want to just get clear about their money have a better relationship with their money. So, and create more abundance and create more freedom in their lives.
Excellent. So did you find that when you made that mental and emotional shift, did everything just suddenly become easier, or was it still kind of an uphill battle?
It did actually become easier. How we do it is what we get. When we approach anything from a perspective of beating ourselves up and this is going to be hard and I'm punishing myself, it's inherently harder versus the perspective of, okay, I can take the same behavior, which is tracking my expenses, for example. And I can do it from the perspective of, I'm doing this because I've been bad and I have to whip myself into shape. Or I can do it from the perspective of, I am tracking my expenses now because this is a loving, kind act, and I am now taking care of myself through taking care of my money. And it just feels so much more light, and I feel so much more willing to do a behavior when I approach it from a place of love and from nurturing myself.
That's fantastic. How did you come to the conclusion that you had to come from a place of love to heal your finances? Because I think when you're in that situation where you've got $20,000 worth of debt or however amount, it can be just kind of like a downward spiral in your kind of attitude and even health sometimes. And you can just feel so down and dark that it seems very challenging to get to that place of love. So how did you come to that?
Well, I just was doing some journaling as I was going through the exercises in Barbara Stanny's book, Overcoming Under-Earning, which I highly recommend any of her books, but that's a great place to start. She's been a big mentor and a friend to me over the years. And through doing some of her exercises, I was just writing in my journal on an airplane one day, inquiring as to why I couldn't seem to get it together. And what I realized is any other area of my life that I wanted to enhance, I was doing so from the perspective of love. But in my financial life, I was continuing to do so from the perspective of beating myself up. So it was sort of like transferring what I was doing in other areas of my life with relationships, say, romantic relationships. I knew that, to be a great partner, you need to love yourself first. And so that was something I was working on. And I just hadn't applied it to my financial life. And I realized maybe if I actually approached taking care of my money like self-care as opposed to like drudgery, maybe I'll actually do it, because my personality is that I don't really do things unless they're fun. And so I realized, okay, I'm going to have to make this fun because I have to do this. So I knew if I could sort of like put financial well-being in the category of manicures and pedicures in my head, that I would actually stick with it. And I did. And they became, when I did take financial actions, it just became so much more effective because the focus and the intention was there, as opposed to like, I'm just going through the motions and I hate this.
So was there a point when things just kind of went from struggle to flow with this process?
I think that with finances, it's always an upward spiral. Like, I think, we can always create a better relationship with our money. We can always become more aware, learn more, those things. But during that year, it was kind of like between 2010, kind of like in 2010, I want to say, when I started making some of these mental shifts consciously, I did attract a lot more abundance in my life. So my income went up a lot. I started getting paid to do workshops, which I had never gotten paid to do that before. And opportunities sort of came out of nowhere when I consciously said, okay, not only am I going to treat my financial awareness in a more loving way and as self-care, I'm also going to value my contribution more. And what I found with myself and so many other people is that when we value ourselves, the world values us too. And opportunities come that never would have come if we were not taking our contributions seriously. There's like an energetic signal that you put out when you begin to notice how much you're adding to any situation, that people begin to notice it as well. And they start to want to pay you for things. It's amazing. So that is what happened. So things became easier. I also made a pretty dramatic change, which is that I decided to get rid of all my stuff, to sell most of my stuff, and go on a road trip and live on the road. And leave New York City. So I dramatically decreased my living expenses while I was also increasing my income. And, that makes it pretty easy to pay off debt.
Sounds like you did a massive decluttering.
I did. I let go of everything. It was awesome. Yeah. I mean, if you want to create some space in your life to attract what you want, get rid of stuff. It makes you feel so free.
Yeah.
All my stuff was like, it took up half of the smallest storage unit I could rent. And then of course we accumulate, it's been almost 6 years now. So it's like, okay, you accumulate again and then you let go. And it's sort of an inhale and exhale process of accumulation and release and accumulation and release.
That happens to me as well. I've moved countries several times. So it's like I accumulate and then I change countries and It's like declutter everything.
Totally. It's so great. I'm into that book, the newish one from the Japanese writer, the life-changing tidying up. I can't remember the name of it.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's been recommended to me so many times and it's on my list.
It's pretty adorable. The way, I don't know that it's the way she writes actually, but the way it's translated is really sweet. And she's kind of a badass. She's kind of like, no, really, this is the only way to do it. And, I have to respect somebody who just really sticks to their guns and says, no, my way is the way. It's really endearing somehow.
That's good because it could be the other way.
Yes. Usually that would put me off, but there's something about this woman that you're like, okay, all right, I'll do it your way.
I've heard that from so many people, so I'm getting that book now. So, Kate, what would you say are your top tips for someone who's struggling with their finances and they want to create financial freedom?
Yeah. So, number one thing is you need to tell yourself the truth. So, for a long time, I hung out in like sort of half awareness about what was going on with my money. And I know so many people who've taken my courses and read my books say the same. They really have their head in the sand because it feels scary to look at the truth. So, for example, not knowing how much debt you actually have, like knowing that you have some and it's spread over various credit cards and, you have some student loans and whatever, but not knowing the totals, not knowing when the bills are due, that kind of vagueness actually creates a lot of friction in our lives energetically and emotionally because the lack of clarity actually sucks our energy.
Yes.
Truth, while it can hurt at first, is extremely freeing because there's no more energy spent in the fear and in the energy you put into avoiding. Because when you know the truth, you suddenly can just do something about it as opposed to, oh my gosh, that's so scary over there. I'm not going to even look at it. You spend so much time and energy not looking at it.
And sometimes it's not even as bad as you thought it was. Yeah.
In my case, it was worse than I thought, but it didn't feel as bad as I thought it was going to. So it's interesting. It's like the total was more than I thought it was going to be, but the knowing the total of my debt did not feel nearly as painful as I had imagined. In fact, it felt freeing. I felt like, oh, okay, well, this is the reality. And now I know, so I can do something about it as opposed to just, paying a little more than the minimums on each of my cards at different times of the month, but never really getting honest with myself. So it's getting honest about the reality of your financial situation, but also the reality of your behavior. And not from a place of guilt or shame, but just from a place of responsibility saying, you know what, I actually created this situation. And what's great about owning that we've created any situation is that then we have the power to create a new situation because we're always in the driver's seat. So you can say, oh, wow, that's interesting. I have, for 2 years, every single month spent more than I made. Now what might happen if I decided to do it differently? Because we're always in control in that case. So I would say that was number one is tell the truth. And I found it really helpful to tell the truth to somebody else as well, because I had a lot of shame about my debt. I felt like a total failure. And when I started mentioning it to a few people, I realized, A, I was not alone. A lot of people were struggling with this. And B, like it didn't make them not love me. So that was really helpful for me. But I don't recommend just telling anybody. It needs to be somebody who's safe, who's not going to make you feel bad.
Exactly. Be selective.
Yeah, be selective. So telling the truth to yourself first, but definitely to somebody who's safe as well. And then after that, I really recommend looking at your money story. So this is an exercise I give in my book, is writing your money love story, but really looking at okay, who have been the key players? What are the situations that have put me in this position? Why have I made these certain decisions? What led me here? And being honest about those things. And then looking through your rose-colored glasses at, okay, maybe I'm not super psyched about where I am in my life right now financially, but how can I see some of these people as teachers? How can I see some of these situations as blessings? How have I been served by this situation? In my own life, I had some bumpy things happen around finances with my dad and a little bit with my mom as well. Actually, no, both of them. And in the moment I was pissed and this, that, and the other thing. But now looking back on it, I can say, oh my goodness, how perfect. If that hadn't happened, I never would have taken myself seriously. I never would have gotten into an amazing partnership with my husband, who's also my business partner. I never would have taught myself, proved to myself what I was made of if I hadn't had these circumstances. So I think most of us, when we look back, we can see that people who we might have resented actually have been such blessings, such angels, such teachers in our lives. And while I do think it's important to feel the emotions in the moment and to get angry and do whatever you need to do, moving past that to see the bigger picture after you feel what you need to feel is pretty important. Because if we get stuck, I know a woman, for example, growing up, she'd been divorced for 15 years. And every day she still was railing on her ex-husband about how he screwed her over financially. And it's how long are you going to keep that up? Is that going to be the rest of your life? Because how does that feel?
Well, it's grown to be such a part of her story that kind of became who she was. She was the woman who got screwed over by the ex-husband.
Exactly. And so, of course, every day she was replaying that and recreating the same circumstances. So we can only create new circumstances when we start to tell a new story. And it can still have the same facts, but it's sort of the way we tell the story and the interpretation of the story that begins to change. So instead of your ex-husband, being the worst thing that ever happened to you, he then becomes the best thing that ever happened to you because that circumstance taught you X, Y, and Z. So that's really an important step after you've sort of gotten real with yourself, is owning your story and deciding to tell it in a new way. Because that frees up a lot of energy then to move forward with new behavior.
Yeah, I think that's so important to look back on those things that we perceive as negative that brought us to this place that we perceive as negative, and looking for those little nuggets of what could I have learned there? Right. Or what did I learn from that situation? Because it completely takes you out of that negative spot and that kind of poor me, and it gives you kind of the responsibility of, I can change things.
Exactly.
Excellent. Yeah. So any more tips on how to create financial freedom?
Yeah. So, those are sort of more of an energetic, but certainly it's really important to know how much you earn and know how much you spend. So that's part of the telling the truth step. But I really recommend tracking for a 30-day period. What do you earn and what do you spend? Now, if you have a salary, most people will know what they earn. But when I was in a lot of debt, I never knew how much I earned because I had my own business. And so it was different every single week. So I just never bothered to track it. So tracking your earnings and your expenses are really important. And what we put our attention on grows. And so we don't want to only track the expenses. A lot of people will recommend you track your expenses, but if you're not putting any attention on what's coming in and only putting attention on what's going out, you can create an imbalance there.
Yes.
So knowing that information is really helpful. And then looking at your spending categories, again, not from a place of blame or shame or judgment, just from a place of okay, this is my reality. I'm just kind of getting a snapshot here. Looking at where you could actually adjust the numbers. And the way I recommend doing this is actually getting in touch with your values. So what's really important to you is your values. So for me, my health is really important to me. My relationships are incredibly important to me, both with my friends and my family and my husband. And the planet, the environment are really important to me. So these are some of the categories for me. And so what you can do is come up with the categories for you. And I do have an exercise on this in my book, but you might already know what they are. Mm-hmm. And then go through your most recent credit card statement and, your checkbook register, however you track what you spend, and mark down, kind of highlight or put a check mark next to any of the items there that don't in some way align with your values. Because where we get off track is when we begin to spend money on things that don't actually matter to us, but maybe we're trying to look a certain way or impress somebody, or, somebody told us we should XYZ. But when you lose track of the purpose behind your spending, that's when things go haywire. And so you want to actually reattach your spending to your values, because money was designed to allow us to spend money on what we value, to get more of what's important to us. So rather than going through and saying like, oh, okay, I'm bad because I go to Starbucks for a latte every day. Well, you know what? When I was getting control over my spending, I realized that going out for coffee made me feel incredibly abundant. And for $4, I could feel like $1 million. Versus for me, buying designer handbags has never been like a thing. It's just, I've done it from time to time, but I grew up near an outlet mall. And so like paying full price always feels weird. So for me, like buying a super fancy car or a handbag or whatever doesn't add that much to how amazing I feel on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. But like buying a latte really does. So it's different for every person. And so that's why a lot of personal finance advice I don't love, because they're trying to fit everybody into a box. Mm-hmm. And money is really fundamentally an emotional topic. And we're told to, it's just business, it's not personal. But when it comes to money, it's always personal, because we made it up. we totally made it up. It doesn't exist. And it's a deeply emotional topic. So when it comes to our spending and wanting to get our finances in order, we have to get in touch with our emotions. We have to get in touch with, how does it make me feel when I save versus when I spend? Another tip is to create a money for me account. And the money for me account is another name for a savings account. I personally had trouble putting money in savings. Like I just really wanted to spend it instead, because I felt like saving money was depriving myself of what I wanted. Mm-hmm. So when I renamed it the money for me account, I felt like, oh, this isn't me depriving myself. This is me paying myself. So those little switches that you can make so that saving feels more abundant than spending, for example, can be really powerful.
I think that's really, really important, because saving can make you feel restrictive, because that means you have less to live on. Mm-hmm. So, Kate, how can other people work with you or learn more from you? You've got a couple of online courses, you've got your fantastic book, and of course, you've got the Freedom Family. Can you tell us a little bit about those things?
Yeah, so my book is available on Amazon and anywhere books are sold. It's in a bunch of different languages as well. And it's called Money, a Love Story. So you can find that. It was published by Hay House. I also have, when you go to my website, katenorthrup.com, I have a free money love quiz, which will give you some custom advice based on the score of the quiz as to how you can create a better relationship with your money immediately. And then I send out weekly blog posts. Like yesterday, I just did one about how to make paying your taxes feel easier. So example, just helpful tidbits along the way. And then I do have a group that I work with the network marketing company that I work with called the Freedom Family. So people who resonate with the idea of earning residual income and working with a proven business model with a great product partner. You can find out about the Freedom Family on my website under Work With Me. And then I do have courses. One that's available all the time is called Feng Shui for Financial Freedom. So if you go through that course, you will learn how to actually set up your home to attract abundance. And the testimonials we have are ridiculous. Like one woman cleaned out the wealth and prosperity. The area of her house was the wealth and prosperity corner. It was a closet that she hadn't touched in, years. It was just full of crap. And literally that day, her husband came home and had gotten a $3,000 completely unexpected bonus at work that was just like, why did they just give me this check? So, crazy stories like that happen all the time with feng shui. So I love that course because it just feels like the closest thing to magic that I can teach people.
I love that. I'm going to go check that out now. Fantastic. I look forward to checking that out because I've had this feng shui conversation with so many people and everyone says amazing stories about it. And I'm like, damn, my microwave is in that corner. I know that.
Yeah.
So
the corner is bigger than, it's an entire quadrant of your home. So luckily it's not going to be just the microwave.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm frying my finances.
No.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your Money Love course, because that's a 4-part online course. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that course is actually under renovation right now.
Ooh.
So, the beauty of running your own business is that you get to decide when to do things a little differently. And, that course originally came out, it's a 4-part course to teach people how to make, earn, grow, and give more value in the world. It came out in spring of 2012, and I've learned a lot since then. It's been 3 years, which I can't believe. And so it's under renovation, and I actually cannot say when it will be out again. But if you hang out on my site and hang out on my list, I will definitely let you know when it's available, for sure.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, Kate, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women in business who inspire you?
Oh, yeah. I love Danielle Laporte. She is a dear friend as well as just an amazing way shower for me. I mentioned Barbara Stanny, Marie Forleo. I just really admire her focus. Chris Carr, I love how wacky and wonderful she is in her business. So those 4 really inspire me on a regular basis. I check in on their stuff all the time and check in with them as well, asking questions and, like that.
Excellent. So, Kate, where can people find you online? You've mentioned your website, but just want to mention that again and see what social media sites people can find you on.
Yeah. So, catenorthrup.com is my website. I'm on Facebook. My page is Kate Northrup Community. I'm on Twitter at Kate Northrup and Instagram at Kate Northrup, and Pinterest. I'm on Kate Northrup, but that is mostly like if you want to see, what kind of dresses I like. I don't really do it a lot for business, but feel free to find me there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You have fantastic advice, and I really, really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you, Holly. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening, and remember to visit readytobloom.com/97 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's guests, including links for topics that were discussed at readytobloom.com. That's bloom.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review of this podcast. Thank you so much.